Hey guys, it's Matt Core from ctrl+paint.com. And last time we left off, we had these rotationally symmetrical designs, and I'd done them in a different piece of software. Well, now it's time to make them clean. And this is actually going to take place in a new document. And since we're dealing with accuracy, I'll tell you this is actually an important step. You want to get a square selection and then try and center it on the sketch. So it doesn't need to be exactly perfect, but the closer you get, the better. So you copy that, make a new document, paste it in there. And now we just need to give it a lot more resolution. So right now I think it's 500 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and make this 2000 pixels. So we've got a very blurry result, but that's fine because it's just an undersketch. Now we need a point that is exactly in the center. And the way that I like to do this is to just turn on the rulers. And here they're set to percentages. And then I'm just going to paint, a basic little dot, a little black dot. And then I turn on snapping. And now if you just get it kind of close to the center, it'll snap right in place. So there it's at 50-50. And for a little more accuracy, I can even shrink it down a bit. Okay, so I have my center dot, which I'll color code red. I have my artwork here. Above that, I'm going to add a gradient map. Now the reason I do this is I like to just lower the contrast. So I'll make sort of a light blue to medium blue. And what this does is it just overwrites everything below it in the layer stack. It's just going to make it easier for me to see what I'm doing and let this be a blueprint. Now I want a little more workspace, but that's just personal preference. So the way I'll do that is select the crop tool and then Alt-Shift to enlarge from the center. So here we're all still centered up. Ooh, actually not quite centered. So I need to move my center dot. Okay. Still not quite right. This is an important step. Okay, there we are. So now I have my center dot in the center. I've got some extra canvas space. I'm all ready to go. Now because this is symmetrical, I can choose to just actually make 1/4 of it and then duplicate it. So that's what I'm going to do. Don't need the rulers anymore. So what I'm going to do is actually use the path tool because my design is relatively simple and I think I'll have an easier time of it if I just give myself a nice hard outline. So I've talked about using the path tool in other videos and I'm not going to go into it now, but it's just a clean way to work. So now I'll make this a selection, make a layer group, and put a mask on it. So now everything I paint inside this mask is just going to stay inside the lines, and that's my goal. Now I'll be painting with black, although I might change the color later. And here's where I go ahead and make the nice final artwork. I've sped up all of this painting footage because yes, it is a painting, but the purpose of this video is to talk about symmetry. So we'll assume that you've painted one of the quarters or however many segments you have and you're ready to go to the next step. Now I'll flatten all that down. So I have just one layer that I need to make copies of. I'm going to hit Free Transform, and then I'm going to move this center pin and put it on top of that circle. So that's the first step, is it has to rotate relative to the center of the document. Next, I need to rotate it a number of degrees that is 360 divided by however many segments I have. So since I have 4 segments, it's pretty simple. It's 90 degrees. So I confirm that. And now you're going to use a really neat keyboard shortcut that you might not know exists. It's called Transform Again. The default for this is Ctrl+Shift+T, but I've remapped mine. So what that does is it just keeps rotating that object 90 degrees around the center pin. So on its own, that's interesting, but it doesn't really get us where we need to go. So what we need to do is add in Alt. So it's Ctrl+Shift+Alt+T, and that'll make a duplicate in addition to transforming again. And there we go. So I can hide my center dot, I can hide my sketch, and there what I'm left with is a nice clean drawing. I think this is a great combination of the speed and design that Sumo Paint offered us, and then the clean, careful rendering that we're used to in Photoshop. For me, it doesn't make sense to start this design work in Photoshop because it's too cumbersome. And obviously it doesn't make sense to do the final rendering in Sumo Paint, but the two combined really make for a nice result. Now in the next video, I'm going to talk about how we can throw in smart objects to make this process even more interesting. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for coming to the site, guys.